Hi there, my name's Jasmine, and today I'm going to be making Mother's Day cards. I'm going to be making 3 cards, and whichever one's my favorite is going to be going to my mom. I've already made all of the cards, and I think they turned out really cute. They're all floral, and they all have different color palettes and feel pretty distinct from each other. But I guess I'm going to let me get into things, and you can see how they look. Alright, I'm getting enough paper for 3 cards here. The paper I'm using is watercolor paper, so it's really thick, kind of like a cardstock, but I think higher quality. And I'm going to start by turning these into cards, so I'm lining them up nicely and folding them in half. But then, once I have a little crease in there, I want it to get a sharper crease, and so I just use this little metal keychain that I have, and I'm using that metal point to really make these folds crisp. And boom, I've got 3 cards all ready to go. Now we can get into the exciting stuff, the paint. I have this crusty, dried up paint palette from the last time I was doing watercolors, and I want to use up this paint, so I'm just going to be rehydrating them with a little bit of water. I'm going to start here with this yellow color, and I'm going to be using this to make the center of a bunch of flowers. So I wanted to start off with a pretty simple design just to get warmed up, because I don't use watercolors a whole lot. And you can see me alternating between these really big dots and little smaller ones so that I can have some variety. And then I'm going in with this really vibrant pink, but pretty watered down because there wasn't much left on my palette. And I'm using that to make the nice big flowers. I'm not trying to make any specific flowers, I'm just trying to make these nice, large, filling the page kind of petals. And while I'm editing this, I'm kind of getting distracted by my paint palette because as I'm going along, there's such a small amount of pink that you can see it just get whittled away as I'm going along here. It really looks like it's done here, but I guess I make it work for one more flower. It's a real pale one, I suppose. And so now I'm trying to pick another color to use for the rest of the flowers, and I use this dark blue. In my head, I really like the idea of using this dark blue, but after looking at it more and more, I think it kind of makes things busy. I've got a complete primary color thing going on here, the red, yellow, and blue. I know it's pink, but it's still a red-esque color, and so this just feels like a lot. But I think that kind of makes it cute. And so I'm going in pencil just to put in some guidelines for the text here. It's just saying Happy Mother's Day. This is one of the most satisfying parts to me because when you're making a card, it feels like everything comes together once you finally put that text on there. So for Happy, I tried to make this scratchy text just so it could contrast the really pretty and elegant way I wrote Mother's Day. It's almost a pseudo-cursive. I have a lot of tails on the ends of my letters, but maybe it is cursive because that E are connected. S's are kind of hit or miss for me, and I don't really like the way that this one turned out. And then right after that, I messed up the next letter by making the bottom too thick. It just felt like a mess, but overall, I still think that the lettering turned out pretty nice. And I go back and do some touch-ups now that I can see it from a distance, making the letter heights a little more uniform and smoother. And at that point, I realized that there were kind of some bald spots on this card. If it's going to be busy, I may as well commit to it so it doesn't look unintentional that I have these gaps here. So I'm filling in with just a few more flowers. And part of me says I should just leave it here. But since I'm already committing to everything being busy and over the top, I wanted to make my text stand out just a little more. I had this intentional diagonal thing going, and so I decided to use these yellow underlines to kind of accentuate that diagonalness. And here's the final card. I think it's pretty cute. It's definitely kind of childlike in my opinion, but I think that just kind of adds to the charm. And now we're on to the second card, and for this one I'm sketching out a very, very light circle because I am making a wreath-esque design for this. And I'm taking a purple color this time, and along that little outline that I just made, I'm going to start adding some flowers. These are kind of like a rose design. I wanted this one to feel a little more stylized than a cartoony flower, and so I'm making these little petals just wrap around themselves. And I realized at some point that these should be maybe a little bit more squiggly so that they feel a little more natural instead of like someone painting them, I suppose. And once I get these lovely flowers, I think that purple just looks so nice, then I pick out another cool tone and I start just trying to fill in the wreath. So with wreaths, there's like a bunch of little tiny greenery in the background, and I just thought it'd be fun to make all of these like just cool tones, even if you wouldn't necessarily find like a little branch of leaves in this baby blue color. Next, I'm finding a super dark color so that I can add just a few more flowers. These are kind of like filler flowers. They're definitely not the main attraction, so I tried to make them pretty tiny and just add some fullness to the wreath design. And I'm also adding Baby's Breath to add some fullness as well. Baby's Breath is white, and so it doesn't really make sense to have it in this super dark blue color. But I wouldn't really be able to paint it in white with this white background, so just don't think about it too much. I realized that I really, really want a green for the leaves, and so I have to bring in a new shade to my paint palette. So these are the watercolors that I currently have on the dry, crusty paint palette, and so I just added that green. I think it was definitely worth it to get the fresh green color for these leaves. As much as I liked the blue and purple color palette, the green really reads as leaves a lot better than another color could. And I think that the cool color palette still works really well, and so after looking at this, I realized I still wanted something to fill it in a little bit more, and so I got out my metallic watercolor paints. This palette really doesn't do them justice. Once they're on the paper, they look way more metallic. I've chosen this light green metallic color, and I'm going to be using this to kind of fill in the framework and like the shape of the wreath, and so I'm just adding lines around to really make it look circular and maybe provide some structure visually. And now that everything's dry, I'm just gonna write Happy Mother's Day again. I'm using pencil just so I have a little bit of guidance. Oh, and I guess I didn't like that day, so we're redoing it, and now we're ready to go in with the Sharpie. So I tried to contrast Happy from Mother's Day again. Happy is this really tight, compact, small lettering, and then Mother's Day is this big, dramatic cursive. It's not the pseudo cursive that I tried last time, and I think the S turned out a lot better on this. I just love how swoopy it looks, but I think it needed just a little bit something extra, and so I'm going in with that metallic paint again. I'm really trying to load up the brush, and then I'm creating a little highlight on the left side of it. I think these are so fun, and I thought it would really pop with this metallic color, but I was a little bit sloppy, so I'm gonna go back and clean that up with the Sharpie, trying to make the black lines look really defined and dark. Here is the finished result for the purple wreath card. This one just turned out so gorgeous. Everything really came together nicely. I'm not sure how well you could see the metallic. I tried to pick it up as best I could, but it looks really, really gorgeous in real life. And here we go with the final card that I'm going to be making today. I'm going to be using this orange color here for the first row of petals that I have. And so I'm really trying to make these evenly spaced. So I put little markers for myself, and I'm filling in the general shape, and now I'm able to like add the actual like sharp edges that I was imagining in my head. And after looking at this, they looked kind of funky, and so I decided to lighten up the inside, and I tried yellow, which didn't really work, and so then I tried just removing the paint, and so I got it really wet with the brush and then just kind of removed it as best I could. Now I'm going in with the second layer of petals, but I was so nervous about doing it, but I just kind of committed. I went in with orange at first, but it really just looked super washed out, and so I tried adding a little bit of red to it, and I think that looks a lot more distinct and kind of pops off of the petals behind it. And I realized that even mixing that orange in is just not colorful enough, and so I'm trying to wipe away that color and just fully commit to the red. It kind of took me a second to like get the colors quite where I wanted, and then I had to reshape a little bit, but then I was able to go in and fill in the rest of the petals. I'm just following kind of the same process as the petals below, and so I fill in the basic shapes, And then I start just really making them super angular and sharp, and then I lighten up the inside, so I'm just using the water to pick up as much of the paint as I can to make it look lighter towards the base of the petals. I think that this added a lot of depth to the flowers, and so I really like it. And now that it's dry, I'm once again gonna use my pencil to get a guideline for how I want the text to look, and oh boy did I struggle with this. I erased this so many times, and even though I kept trying over and over again, I still think the final result was kind of crooked, but I still committed to inking this one. I used a consistent cursive font on this card, and I think that helped make everything look more cohesive, especially since I'm using this to be the flower stem. So here's my final result, and I think this one turned out really pretty. The colors are so warm, and I think the geometric shapes are pretty fun. And with that, I'm all done with these cards. I think they all turned out really pretty in their own ways, but you let me know which one's your favorite down below. And now it's time for me to tell you my ranking of the cards. Probably my least favorite of the cards is this one. It's the most busy, it has these super contrasting colors, and there's stuff going on literally everywhere, and the handwriting didn't turn out the best, and it's just very busy. I think it's really charming, I think it's kind of campy, and so I still like it, it's just not quite my favorite of the ones I made. My second favorite is this card. I think it looks super elegant with the combination of these super geometric petals and using the text to make the stem on it. And the lighting also turned out pretty cute, so I'm pretty proud of this one. My favorite of all of them, the one that I'm going to be giving to my mom, is going to be this one. I think I'm a little biased because I love purple, it looks so nice. And I also love cool colors, so I feel like this color palette already had a head start. But everything just turned out kind of more how I was envisioning it in my head. The wreath looks fantastic, the flowers look so stylized, the text turned out great, you can see the metallic on it. I just think it turned out really nice, and I would love for my mom to get this card. And here is our winner. Mom, if you're watching this, I want to say I love you and happy Mother's Day. Hopefully you're watching this after you've gotten the card so that I didn't accidentally spoil it with the video. So that's what I ended up creating today, and I hope you had a fun time watching. Maybe you got some ideas to make your own Mother's Day cards, and if you are a mother and you're watching this, happy Mother's Day, and I will see you guys in the next video.